Imagine telling a Korean family that you have found the perfect home. It has a large yard, a private garden, no upstairs neighbors, no downstairs neighbors, plenty of space. For many people around the world, this sounds like a dream. But in South Korea, the first question might be surprisingly different. What apartment is it? Not how big it is, not how beautiful it is, not even where it is, but what apartment complex it belongs to. To many foreigners, this can seem strange. After all, aren't apartments supposed to be the compromise? The smaller option? The affordable option? In many countries, people dream of moving out of apartments and into houses. But in South Korea, apartments are often the dream itself. Why? Why do so many Koreans want apartments? Why are some apartment complexes treated almost like luxury brands? And how did a country become so closely associated with apartment living? To answer that question, we need to go back in time. Today, South Korea is one of the most urbanized countries in the world. Nearly half of the country's population lives in the greater Seoul metropolitan area. Millions of people live within a relatively small amount of land. But Korea was not always like this. Only a few generations ago, most Koreans lived in rural communities. Many families worked in agriculture. Cities were much smaller, life was slower. Everything changed after the Korean War. The country needed to rebuild. People began moving to cities in search of jobs. Factories expanded, businesses grew, economic development accelerated, and suddenly, Korea faced a new problem. Where would everyone live? The population of cities increased rapidly. Traditional housing could not keep up with demand. The government and private developers needed a solution, and that solution was simple. Build upward, not outward. Apartment complexes began appearing across the country. At first, they were practical, efficient, affordable, a way to house large numbers of people quickly. But over time, something unexpected happened. Apartments became more than housing. They became symbols of modern life. For many Koreans, moving into an apartment represented progress. It often meant access to better infrastructure, better heating, better plumbing, better transportation, better schools, a better future. As decades passed, apartment living became normal, then it became desirable, and eventually it became the standard. Today, the majority of South Koreans live in apartments. For many people, apartment living is not an alternative. It is simply how life works. But housing alone doesn't explain why apartments became so important. The deeper reason lies in something else: opportunity. In South Korea, where you live can affect many aspects of life: schools, transportation, access to jobs, social networks, daily convenience. All of these can be connected to location. As a result, housing became more than shelter. It became a strategy. Families often viewed housing decisions as investments in their children's future. A home near a strong school district could create educational opportunities. A home in a growing neighborhood could increase in value. Location mattered, and apartments became one of the easiest ways to access those opportunities. Then another factor entered the picture: real estate. Over the past several decades, property values in many parts of Korea increased dramatically. For countless families, buying an apartment became the single largest financial decision of their lives. And for some, it became the most successful investment they ever made. As apartment prices rose, apartments began serving two purposes at once. They were places to live, and they were financial assets. This changed how people thought about housing. People no longer asked only, "Is this a good place to live?" They also asked, "Will this apartment increase in value?" And this mindset remains powerful today. Perhaps nowhere is this more visible than in Seoul. Certain neighborhoods have become famous throughout the country, not just because they are expensive, but because they represent opportunity, education, status, convenience, success. In some cases, apartment names themselves have become recognizable brands. People know them, talk about them, associate them with certain lifestyles. To outsiders, this can seem unusual. How can a building become a status symbol? But from another perspective, it makes sense. When housing affects education, transportation, social connections, and wealth, people naturally begin attaching meaning to it. Of course, apartment culture has advantages. Apartment complexes are often convenient. They include security systems, parking, playgrounds, gyms, walking paths, community facilities. Many people enjoy the convenience and efficiency. But there are also criticisms. Some people argue that apartment culture encourages excessive focus on property values. Others worry that housing has become too important as a measure of success. Younger generations often express frustration about rising housing prices, especially in major cities. As a result, modern Korea finds itself facing a difficult question. Should housing primarily be a place to live, or should it also be a tool for building wealth? This debate continues today, and it shapes political discussions, economic policy, and everyday conversations across the country. In the end, the Korean love for apartments is not really about buildings. It is not about concrete towers, or elevators, or floor plans. It is about something much larger: history, opportunity, security, education, wealth, and the hope for a better future. Because in South Korea, an apartment is often more than a home. It is a reflection of how the country developed, how families planned for the future, and how millions of people tried to build better lives within one of the fastest changing societies in modern history. So the next time you look at the endless rows of apartment towers stretching across Seoul's skyline, remember, you are not just looking at buildings. You are looking at the story of modern Korea itself.